Good evening and welcome to Ask the Expert, Sustainability and Microbiomes, the final APC Microbiome Ireland SFI Research Centre event for World Microbiome Day 2021. I'm your host and MC for the evening, Jack Daly. Now, World Microbiome Day took place yesterday, Sunday the 27th of June. Every year, the World Microbiome Day has a theme. Last year was diversity. The year before that was I think it was Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings. I can't really remember. But the theme this year is sustainability and the multitude of ways that microbiomes can be utilized to assist in sustainability. Now, this event is for people who would like to learn more about the relevance of sustainability to microbiomes and how microbiomes can be influenced to promote sustainability. So we spent some time last week asking members of the public various questions relating to World Microbiome Day to kind of get a general consensus towards these topics. So firstly, we'd ask these people, did they know what sustainability was? And unsurprisingly, almost everyone had heard of it and understood its major concepts. We followed up by asking these people, did they know what the microbiome was? Some people had a loose grasp of the microbiome, but most had not any knowledge of it. So finally, we would ask these people how the microbiome could be utilized to assist in sustainability. Now, this is where nearly everyone got tripped up. It's a tough one to get. So to bridge this gap in information, this evening we will answer as many questions as we can get to about sustainability in relation to the microbiome. Now, I'll just start off by saying this meeting will be recorded, so you can view this later. So I'm lucky to be joined by a mighty fine trio of brain boxes who can help shed some light on these topics. So our panel speakers and microbiome experts this evening are Miguel Rethillo, an Apex Marie Curie Fellow at the APC Microbiome Ireland, University College Cork. So Miguel, would you like to say a bit about yourself?
Hello, everyone, and thanks a lot for welcoming me tonight. Yeah, as you said, I'm a postdoctoral researcher. I'm a microbiologist working in food and infectious diseases, and my work is trying to investigate or elucidate ways in which we can make food-specific foodborne pathogens, in my case, Listeria monocytogenes, by using environmental cues or gut microbiome-derived molecules, the pathogen less virulent or a vulnerable host more resistant to its colonization in the gut. So that's my job at the minute in the APC.
Very nice. Cheers for that, Miguel. Next up, we've got Katie Gazzetta, an Irish Research Council funded final year PhD student here at the APC Microbiome Ireland too. So Katie, would you like to say a bit about yourself?
Sure, thank you, Jack. My name is Katie, as Jack said. I am a final year PhD student, and my research is investigating how the bacteria that live inside of our gastrointestinal tract influence our ability to generate new neurons in our brain, and what this means for host cognitive health and other aspects of health. So targeting the microbiome may be able to promote brain health.
Thanks very much, Katie. We then have Jatin Nagpal, an Irish Research Council postdoctoral fellow in the Cryan Lab at the APC, and he's working in the microbiota gut-brain axis field.
Hi, Jack. Hi, everybody. Welcome. So my name is Jatin, and I work at the intersection of microbiota, gut-brain axis, as Jack was mentioning. So my research work is mainly focused at investigating the mechanisms behind this communication between the microbiota and the brain, and how it is relevant for behaviors such as stress response behaviors, social behaviors, and how this could have relevance for mental health in general.
Very nice. Thank you, Jatin. So a little bit about myself as well. I'm a PhD student at the APC Microbiome, and I'm investigating how both the good and bad bacteria can interact with the bile in our gut and the knock-on effects these have on our health. So all our speakers are researchers working in different areas of the microbiome science. I will now go through a few questions which were sent in pre-event, but please feel free to use the chat box as we proceed, and you can add your questions in there and we can hopefully get to them in the event. So firstly, I'd like to preface this entire discussion with how much I cannot stand the phrase, in the interest of time, when people want to cut an answer short. So instead, to alert you to wrap up, I will exclaim, Jack Daly, to ensure that you're going to finish promptly. So let's just try that one out really quickly. So Miguel, do you want to give your quick intro again so we can get off? So just say your quick intro about yourself.
Hello, everyone. So I'm a postdoctoral researcher.
Jack Daly! Yeah, okay. So we got it. We got it. So
It'll work
moving
fine,
forward. Yeah, okay, perfect. So we're all sorted. So firstly, to get the juices going, I'll ask you a nice softball question. And it was a beautiful sunny day here in Cork yesterday. So I want to know, how did all of you celebrate World Microbiome Day? So Katie, would you like to go first on that one?
Sure. Yes, so World Microbiome Day was yesterday, and it was a beautiful sunny day, and I spent a lot of it in the lab doing some nice microbiome research. But outside of the lab, I did get to participate in some microbiome-friendly activities. So this included, I went for a nice jog, and I thought about how exercise can health. I also had a little bit of a fermented drink called kombucha. It was a nice little treat. So that's strongly implicating microbes because it's a fermented drink and microbes are involved in the fermenting process. What else did I do? I repotted some of my tomato plants to larger pots because they've outgrown their small pots. So I was hands deep in soil microbes, thinking about how these microbes are really important for the benefits of plants. So I didn't celebrate in any big extraordinary way, but by doing these activities on this day, I was very mindful of the fact that microbes are involved in so many things around the world.
Nice. And really quickly as well, your own kombucha, or did you go out and buy it?
No, I had a little bit from Lidl.
Oh, nice. You got to get on it, man. Easiest thing in the world. You save mad money making your own. Like, I've got a SCOBY actually, if you want one. It's probably dead. It's been in the fridge for months now, but yeah, try it.
I'm sorry to my mom, but I did try hers, and it tastes like vinegar.
Yeah.
Bit of a balance needed.
Yeah, I don't mind the vinegar, all right. But Jatin, how about you? What did you do yesterday?
Oh, I was with my kids, enjoying the sunshine. So enjoying being in the sun and being in muddy in the soil with the microbes all around me, with the kids playing. So it was fun. It was fun. So yeah, I think as Katie was mentioning, and we were also having some fermented food products. So we had milk cafe in the morning. It's very good for breakfast with some berries in the season. It looks very good and tastes also very good. Then I also had a bit of sauerkraut. This is this German fermented food product. So I lived in Germany for a long time, so I got this habit of eating sauerkraut. I got a taste for it. So sauerkraut was on the menu in the lunch, and beyond that, no, it was just rejoicing the company of my kids and being outside in the sun.
Oh, very nice. Yeah, I'm very impartial to sauerkraut now. Like, I'd put that on nearly everything. Like, nice bit of ice cream, put some sauerkraut on top. Oh, unreal.
I probably wouldn't be that adventurous, Jack, but
Not that adventurous? No. Maybe
New
sometime
Ben
we'll
and
have it.
Jerry's flavor.
Exactly, yeah. Or I would come out of a 99 like that, the 99 machine, and just the sauerkraut just squeezing out, rounding up a cone. That'd be nice, something. All right, dibs it. I dibs that idea. No one else can have it. Miguel, what about you? What did you do yesterday?
Yeah, your days have been fantastic, as I see. I've been actually at home following up on a human conference, human microbiota conference. So I've been just trying to suck up all that knowledge. So because normally in the lab we just speak about gut microbiota, but this conference is about the microbes that are present in the oral cavity, in our skin, anywhere around our body. So it's super good to be listening to other people's research and trying to further understand how the microbes do their thing in all parts of our body. So I spent the day on it, and then I chilled and went for a jog. So that was my day yesterday.
Oh, nice. Very nice. So those are some nice days out. So now that the blood is flowing and we have the pitter patter of grey matter, we have a question here. With traditional capital markets beginning to incorporate blockchain technology and digital assets, and the coronavirus pandemic only hastening the process, what does this mean for the democratization of our financial systems that cryptocurrencies were promised to develop? Jatin, would you like to field that one?
I'll let it pass. I think Katie would be mad.
Oh man, I spent 20 minutes working on that earlier, like just to throw a curveball into it. I
Well, I
generally have
don't
no
know
idea.
too much about cryptocurrencies, but we can definitely talk about sustainability and in that sense. I've heard that cryptocurrencies are indeed driving a lot of energy consumption, so it's not very sustainable.
Yeah. I'm not even sure if the question makes sense, to be honest. I just threw a load of adjectives and nouns together and hope for the best. But we'll get back to it now. So in all seriousness, we do have a question about what aspect of sustainability, of assisting sustainability with microbiomes fascinates you the most currently? So Jatin, would you like to start with that one?
Yeah, sustainability and fascination with sustainability. So my research focus is on human health and how microbiome could influence human health, in particular mental health is the focus of my research. So when I look at sustainability, I look for sustainability for health solutions. So a thing which sort of is very it's so obvious, but it's still it's like hiding in plain eyesight, is the fact that how can we keep our microbiome happy in order to make ourselves happy? And this is basically the center for me in terms of sustainability. And the answer is not is few things which everybody, your grandma always tells you, sleep well, eat well, exercise well. And these are some of the very basic things which are sort of ingrained in our healthy lifestyle philosophy. But if you look at it deeply scientifically, now slowly evidence is emerging that all these good lifestyle habits also have a very positive effect on our microbiome. And the microbiome which we host in our bodies has enormous impact on the body functioning in all different aspects of body functioning, including brain chemistry as well as mental health. So when I look at all these good lifestyle habits, I try to sort of think of them as sustainable ways to maintain health. So this is the best that we can do to ourselves. And most of these activities do not cost money. So it's just that mindset in order to sort of relate to the fact that these kind of activities are actually really strongly helping your microbiome to be in a happy state, and hence making you in a very happy and healthy state.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a really good point, Jatin. A lot of times, like one thing that we're learning more and more about these days is how diet drives the gut microbiome and who lives in your gut and what they're doing. And what we've seen over the past few centuries is a big transition in human diet away from a lot of high fiber, diverse diets into more of what we call a Western diet or a cafeteria diet, where you have more fat and less fiber in your diet. And we're seeing a bit of an extinction in the microbiome and a loss of diversity in species of bacteria and what they're doing in the gut microbiome. And so having sustainability in your gut microbiota may be able to help have long-lasting benefits on your health, be it the mental capacity, mental state, or in health and diseases as well, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think diet and like Chatten said, exercise, sleep, all these things, they're quite easily accessible, tangible things you can modify for your betterment. Miguel, do you have anything?
Yeah, I think these are just natural resources that we have in our hands, on a daily basis, and that we need to exploit them. And we're just not conscious that they exist there, but they're there for us naturally in our evolution for us to benefit from them. So that's fantastic. So, but like coming back to your question, I think one of the most interesting things for me is that as I'm a gut microbiome scientist, what really interests me is things that I don't know, and learning how other people are trying to find ways in which they can use microbes to apply that to all other things that we do in life. So beyond health, it just the ways in which you can use microbes to reduce climate change and gas emissions and soil remediation, bioremediation and things like that. It's just like, it blows my mind. It's we've got to be conscious of how important it is to discover and get to know exactly what the microbes do in order for us to exploit them beyond our gut health. But of course, that's what we all do here, and it's super interesting. But we need to be conscious that they do a lot more than just in our bodies. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. That's actually interesting because this kind of brings me to my next question about. So when I found out myself that sustainability was a theme this year, I kind of, so currently I said how I work with the bacteria in the gut and like yourself and how it kind of affects knock-on effects for the health. But previously I used to work with the soil microbiome. So for me, when I heard sustainability, soil microbiome, plant microbiome, that's kind of like the twig goes off in your head and you're like, yeah, you're cutting down on fertilizers, you're cutting down on pesticides. It's pretty tangible. And then I was thinking about my current work and I was like, I just don't see how it involves sustainability. But I kind of had to drill into it a bit. I was like, oh, well, it's, involved with healthcare system, kind of like you all said. And, these are knock-on effects. So I think sometimes we can pigeonhole sustainability to just discussing things like natural resources or climate, but ultimately things like healthcare, cultural, societal issues, they're all part of the society of the sustainability argument. So what I want to know from you is, how do you think your work that you do involves with sustainability? And did you kind of always know this, or were you like myself where you kind of had to think about it for a second, like kind of like chatting you said earlier, it's like it's almost there in front of you, you just don't see it sometimes, So Miguel, do you want to start on that one?
Yeah, so it's very interesting this week that you're saying, because we are so embedded and focused on our research that we don't see like the bigger impact and the bigger picture of it.
Exactly.
So if I had to think of how my research is contributing to that, I would have to go to the question of antibiotic resistance itself. So I'm trying to find ways in which we can reduce the amounts of antibiotics that we are pouring into animal feeding and humans, and I do it by trying to find environmental molecules and gut microbiome derived molecules that can promote gut health, and beyond that in our organisms, so that we don't have to, and use them as a preventive mode for us to assure that we will be healthier and that our animals will be healthy, and therefore reduce the costs and of antibiotics that are poured in, especially in animal feed, because it's I believe is up to 80% that the antibiotics usage is in going to animal feed. So it's all about being more biosustainable and bioeconomically sustainable, So I think that's where my research is actually getting into in the bigger picture. That's how I frame it. Yeah.
And guys, do you have anything as well?
Yeah, I guess it comes back to like the question, what is sustainability? And by definition, it's really the maintenance of natural resources to sustain like an ecosystem. And in our gut, which is what I research, we have this own biosphere and ecosystem, or multiple ecosystems depending on where you are in the gut. All of these bacteria that are living and residing in our gastrointestinal tract, and we need to be able to understand what they're doing there and how to sustain them to promote host health. So my research, again, like you said earlier about sustainability, when I think about sustainability, it's really climate change and plastics and all this pollution and waste, and how do we move to a world where we are sustainable all the time. But my research is a little bit more focused on the gut and promoting host health. So in that sense, that it's a little more scoped in on one specific field, but sustainability is very important as well, and understanding how microbes live and what they're doing, and how we can support the healthy ones, the beneficial ones, to help us.
Oh, nice.
I think that is very interesting, because I think as researchers we have to identify what is it that actually our research can be served for, and I think that's the first thing that we've got to do. And I think we have already identified most of the things that microbes can do, but we need to further research what they can do for us. We just know that they can do it, but we still don't know how in many cases. So yeah, very interesting, Catherine. Yeah.
Nice. I might just go to the question box here, because Tina Darb has asked a question, and it actually ties into another question that was asked before by a lot of people. So she says, what is the easiest plant to grow at home for food that is beneficial for the microbiome? And I'd like to give a follow-up to that as well. After you can all give your 2 cents on that. But what do you think is what can you be doing at home to be more sustainable to the use of microbiomes? Because through asking people last week, I mean, that was the one we always got hit back with. Like, if we could ask a researcher anything, I would ask you, how do we be more sustainable with microbiomes at home? So plant first. Let's go. Chatting. Hit it up. What's the best plant you can eat, grow at home for your microbiome?
Oh, that's I think growing at home. I think all kinds of at least I mean for the gut microbiome, the fiber is the king. So I think anything which contributes to the fiber intake, be it in the form of cereals or salads and things like that, they provide you ample fiber. I think that would be the greatest thing which you could do for your microbiome. And other things as I mean fermented products. So I mean that's I think in every culture. I think I mean I come from India. I lived in Germany for a while. Now I'm in Ireland, and I have friends from all over the world. And it's so interesting to hear that every culture has their own staple
Fermentation. Yeah.
So and it is past. It's not like something which has picked up in the last 10-20 years because it's fashionable. It's actually become fashionable, but it's a very, very old rooted cultural culinary thing. So that's something which I always try and sort of do. Fermented food. I mean yogurts and cheeses. These are all very good. I mean the things which are like kefir, water kefir, milk kefir. These are things which are very good for human microbiome, gut microbiome. Yeah.
Tina, I really like how you asked your question, because you're not only asking like what foods are beneficial for the microbiome, but you're also putting this implication that you're doing it yourself at home, and that in itself is really sustainable. You're reducing the amount of miles and kilometers that food has to travel if you're growing something in your own backyard, and you're also supporting your own local ecosystem, the bees, the pollinators, and producing carbon with plants. I have a little garden in my backyard. I have a bunch of tomatoes. We have some kale and lettuce and strawberries and lots of other stuff. I won't bore you with it. But Jatin's already touched on a lot of different foods and plants that you could grow at home. I think in Ireland, which we're currently all based in Ireland, onions are a easy enough plant to grow, or garlic. Both of these contain a lot of nutrients as well as prebiotics. So prebiotics are these sorts of precursors to, it's a type of substance in your food that supports healthy microbes. So probiotic being like a live beneficial bacteria, prebiotic is something that you consume that supports your microbes. So garlic, onion, these both have a lot of really important prebiotics, like inulin, for instance, which is shown to be healthy for supporting cognition and aging through the microbiome. So these sorts of foods, and polyphenols, which are found in blueberries and in other fruits and vegetables, which maybe you won't grow in Ireland, but also very good to consume. Lots of fruits and vegetables.
Nice.
Yeah, I think eating seasonally also may help. As you were saying also, Catherine, like we are transported into Ireland or whatever country so many fruits and vegetables that are not seasonal, and they have to come from all over the world. So I think, I mean, if we could all have a nice garden where we could cultivate all these vegetables, would be ideally. But from home, I think eating or buying things locally and eating seasonally, like vegetables that come for the time that we're living, I think that's a good way to keep promoting a good health in that way.
Yeah, very nice. I always try to grow stuff in my garden every year, and it gets to like I kind of pass every season of starting it. I'm like, it's like gets to like April, then it's too late to start, the carrots, and then it gets to like, January or the July, and it's too late to start this. So yeah, every year I'm just like, okay, next year I'm gonna do it, like, still haven't done it once. Like I think it's very interesting about the fermented food thing as well. I mean, like that's just like it is just it would appear almost every culture has this thing. And
when you said that, I was thinking in Ireland, which would it be? And then I thought of beer.
And soda bread as well, I suppose.
Soda bread,
Yeah. And the beer is a good one as well. Like, that's always a good one. Yeah. What's it called? There was one other question we had here from a pre-event question. How can manipulating the microbiome help face the great challenge of antibiotic resistance? I like that. It's ominous.
I think that comes back to what I was discussing before, you know, we need to find ways in which we can prevent opportunistic pathogens or foodborne pathogens from being virulent when they're inside our guts, and also creating this sort of barrier with our microbiota to, you know, to create more colonization resistance against foodborne pathogens. So there's, you know, there's different ways that we can use, and we can exploit microbial derived molecules such as short-chain fatty acids. They're called these little molecules that are super beneficial for our gut epithelium and beyond. I think there's the combination of all these things need to be investigated and need to be shown that they can promote colonization resistance, and therefore being, you know, just have dietary interventions with them and see if we can definitely reduce the impact of antibiotics usage or misuse, and then stop reducing or reduce the antibiotic generation, you know, resistance generation. I think that's the way. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think a huge problem is antibiotic resistance that we're seeing creep up because we've kind of hit a sort of medical threshold where we're not really able to discover a lot of new antibiotics. So we're stuck with what we have at the moment. We're trying to develop more every day, but the ones we've produced over the last 100 or so years, really there's not too much currently available beyond that. So one of the problems I see is that a lot of antibiotics are overused in agriculture, especially dairy farming and other animal farming, where a lot of farmers, maybe not here, but other places around the world as well, may pump a lot of antibiotics into their animals to try to keep them healthy. And that's really not the best first resort solution. And that sort of mass farming and antibiotic usage leads to antibiotic resistance, and that's really, really bad. So maybe there's ways that we can, like, the first thing that you should do instead of resorting to antibiotics is other preventative strategies that can keep your animals healthy, and maybe by manipulating the microbiome and targeting the microbiome of these animals, we might be able to promote animal health without the need of antibiotics. So this would alone help minimize antibiotic resistance just by using less antibiotics.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really, I mean, so the other thing which one has to realize with the antibiotics is, especially in farming practices, is antibiotics is supposed to be a curative agent rather than a preventive agent. You know, so that's
Right.
something which has to somehow sort of seep into the philosophy of farming and other healthcare practices as well. You know, so and that, like, widespread use of antibiotics in effect actually leads to the problem of antibiotic resistance. And the other thing which I think Katie also sort of touched upon, which I think is really important, is the use of biopesticides and biofertilizers. You know, so I think a lot of carbon emissions and things which are sort of related to global warming are also coming from massive production of inorganic pesticides and things which consume a lot, you know. So the use of biofertilizers or biopesticides, which are actually microbiome based, you know, I mean, many people do not realize, but soil is full of microbiota, and without the microbiota of the soil, we will not be able to produce food, you know. So it is central to the process production of food. So if you tend to sort of support that process by providing a bacterial environment which is beneficial in terms of, which we call it as biofertilizer or biopesticide, you actually bolster the food output, the food production, in effect actually promoting food safety all over the world, and also then contribute to the process of sustainability, in the sense that you do not use inorganic pesticides like indiscriminately, you know. So whenever it is required, but if you can substitute it and pull it more towards the biopesticide side, I think that actually helps the planet as well.
Yeah, there's also one part of this question that's really really accurate, Jatin. There's one part of this question that we haven't really talked about yet, and I mentioned a little bit about how the antibiotics that we use today, a lot of them have been around for years, and we're having a struggle to find and produce new antibiotics that would be beyond the scope of antibiotic resistance at the current moment. But manipulating the microbiome to help face the challenge of antibiotic resistance. What we haven't talked about yet is the microbiome isn't just comprised of bacteria and fungi and archaea, but it's also comprised of viruses. So COVID, for instance, is the virus behind this, our best friend or worst enemy. It's also a microorganism in a sense. It's a microbe, though not living. It's also considered in some occasions as part of the microbiome. And inside of our gastrointestinal tract, for instance, there's trillions of phages, and phages are viruses for bacteria. So these sorts of viruses have a big effect on which bacteria may be able to live and survive, and they can infect bacteria much like other viruses can infect humans. So we're beginning to understand these dynamics between phages and other microorganisms. So by using phages, maybe this could be a solution in the future where we will have a very targeted ability to attack one specific microbe without having the off shot of destroying a bunch of other bacteria with a broad spectrum antibiotic. So that could be also a way that our studies into the microbiome help with antibiotic resistance in the future.
I have a lot of faith for phage therapy. So it's fantastic that you have brought this up, because there's so many layers. You know, as we get to understand how the microbiomes work, is another layer of things that we can exploit. So fantastic, yeah.
Yeah, some very good answers there. I like what you were saying as well, chatting to Katie, about the farming practices with antibiotics and, you know, and kind of biopesticides and biofertilizers as well in the soil microbiome. And again, even with just normal agriculture as well, there's other things you can do, like, you know, having hedgerows and diversity of plant life in these, like, mono farms, essentially just like one crop over and over. That's wiping out the bacterial diversity constantly and the microbiome diversity in the soil. So that's kind of, in a way, like, that's a prebiotic, and the biofertilizers and pesticides are the probiotic, kind of like the same. But I think ultimately, to get sustainable, like, we need to, like, include the farmers and agricultural providers and services all in this discussion and say, like, okay, well, you know about this, but we're talking about microbiome, so you need to take that into account as well. So it's kind of important to get this whole holistic approach now. So I'll follow up with here's a nice question, actually. Is there something you wish everyone knew about microbes that most people don't? So what would be your one go-to one? Katie, start it off, get the ball rolling.
Oh no, do I have to start? There's so many fun facts. I'm going to throw in
I've got one for myself, if I can just.
Yeah, please.
It was brought up earlier, actually, talking about the antibiotics again, and how it's in the food system and everything, that basically, like, people who think, like, oh, well, I've never taken an antibiotic in my life. It's like, well, you have antibiotics through your system right now. Like, you know, it's just like, just the actual scope of antibiotic use throughout the world is pretty scary, like, you know. So that's what I'd like people to know. Follow that, Katie.
Well, that's fun.
Follow that.
That's very fun. I guess I'll keep it a bit sustainability related. Most of my fun facts might be a little bit off target here. But I only learned the other day about how important the microbes in the ocean are for our atmospheric health. So in the ocean, there's trillions and trillions of bacteria. Even just in like a milliliter of water, there's so many bacteria, and a lot of them are really important for maintaining the health of both the aqua system and also in the atmosphere, because these bacteria photosynthesize, so they're able to take in carbon and produce oxygen, and about 50% of the oxygen in our planet is potentially produced by the ocean, and a lot of this being from bacteria that live in the ocean. So these bacteria can remove about 10 billion tons of carbon from the air every single year. And I think that's crazy. And to be able to learn more about these microbes and maybe learn to take advantage of that to promote a sustainable future, that's a really cool place to go.
Nice. That's a good one. That's another tough act to follow.
I think with the ocean thing, if I'm not mistaken, I think the the microbial biomass in the ocean is probably 90% of the total biomass of the oceans. And I think this is this next big frontier. We do not know we do not even know what is the total biodiversity in our oceans. And we have 70% water on Earth, so this is really a black box. And I mean, we're trying to understand more of it, but I think that's remarkable. The other thing, the fun fact which I like with respect to the gut microbiome, or in general the human microbiome, is this kind of it was kind of a revelation. So if it was like, so we are more microbial than humans, so we have more microbial cells in our body than the human cells, and we have more microbial genes in our bodies than the human genes. And for me, this is remarkable. I mean, this is to have so this concept is called as a holobiont, so we are not just humans, but we are actually a kind of a melange of human and microbial cells, so for me, the fact that we are more microbial than human is something which is amazing.
I knew when you said about the biomass of the ocean, I was like, the human microbiome thing is coming up. I could feel it. I could feel it in my bones. You're going to drop that one. But yeah, that's a very interesting point. Think about the ocean one as well, saying about think about the biomass, like how much we've actually haven't explored of the ocean, like not even withstanding the fact of going down, checking for microbes down there, So yeah, it's very interesting. Miguel, what are you going to come up with?
Just took it off my mouth. Actually, that was the most curious thing I was actually going to talk about. It's just I believe that it's estimated that we have around 10 to 100 trillion bacterial cells living within our body, and that I think that's just crazy, yeah. And I think people don't really realize, like, even in our skin or our face, in our oral, like in our mouth, everywhere, there's just a fine layer of so many different species of microorganisms. So I think that's mind-blowing. I think when I studied microbiology for the first time, I was like a bit overwhelmed by thinking that everything we touch, every surface is just covered in microbes, So that's something that a layman person wouldn't just come up with, and just the fact that not only that, but that you can use them and benefit from them to do things for us in a more sustainable way. It's just mind-blowing. So I think that's the most curious thing for me.
Yeah, Miguel, that's great. Like, that's also what got me into this field is seeing how much of our body is actually comprised of microbial cells, and the fact that our human genes, we're born with them in the most part. We have epigenetics, and sure, there's some differences in regulation going on across the lifespan, but these microbial genes and these microbes that live in our body are in a constantly dynamic state. They're never going to be ever the same as they were before you ate a meal, or even now. They're constantly doing different things and changing, and very, very dynamic. And so being able to utilize them and target them to promote health and maybe treat cancer in the future, or cure depression, or these sorts of things, where we're beginning to understand that they have importance in these disease states that we never thought were linked to the gut before. This is incredible. And that's the reason I got into this field. Boom.
It's great.
Yeah.
Nice. I think we probably have time for about one or two more questions. So before I ask my next question, I'll just say if anyone wants to write a question into the chat box, any burning questions, feel free to, and we should be able to get to it. So one thing that came up before as well from some people were asking, are scientists doing anything to make their labs more sustainable? So thinking about the reducing of the volume of plastic waste, water, energy. Do you know of your own lab or any other labs who are trying to combat some of the waste involved with general research in the biochemical field?
Yeah, that's a really important topic, and it's really hard because the world, especially science, it relies on funding and money and the ability to buy things cheaply that might not be the most sustainable. Like, that's also really important so we can continue to conduct science. So outside of the scope of our lab, if we are able to make things more obtainable and financially available that maybe are more sustainable, I think that's a really important step. But we do have a lot of stuff going on at UCC. It's a very sustainable campus and university. So one of these things is green labs. So maybe another researcher could talk about that so I don't steal everyone's time.
I would like to say really quickly about just jumping in with the funding thing. I think this moving forward has to be a recognized thing where funding agencies will ultimately have to recognize that your money will be contingent on being sustainable. You know, we can't just be forced to look for the cheapest option or the most time cost-effective option. Eventually, sustainability will have to enter that sphere as well. Like, but does anyone want to talk about green labs, something lighter, before I attack all the funding agencies?
I mean, UCC and different departments within the UCC, we are actively seeking green lab certification. And the way we're trying to sort of address this in the scientific field, I mean, the experiments require a lot of disposable plasticware, you know, so that's something, if you could substitute the disposable plastic with glassware, which can be washed and reused, that's one way to cut down on disposable one-time use plastics, you know. So there are lots of these infrastructural equipment, you know, which has somehow got now very routinely being used, which is all plastic based, you know. So if we could, and we are trying to sort of go back to making it more sustainable, you know. It's never, you know, a black and white answer, but we're trying in ways where we could reduce the plastic consumption in the lab, plastic consumables in the lab, and move towards more sustainable ways of using and doing using equipment and doing science. I think that's the way to go.
Even just like turning the lights off or turning off a machine or an instrument that won't be used for a while will help conserve energy.
Yeah,
I think the glassware is an interesting one as well, because I've a friend of mine, Darren Reedy, involved sustainability in UCC, and he used to argue that, you know, it's not that long ago since we used to buy our fruit and veg fresh in the shop. It's not that long ago since like that plastic has become to envelop everything. And it's the same in the lab. Like, it's not that long ago that we used glassware in the labs, that we would clean them afterwards, like, you know. So it's definitely just the plastic is a big issue. But Miguel, I interrupt you there. What were you going to?
No, I was just going to say that, yeah, I think we have to accept that for now we have changed into a plastic world in science, and we have to come back to the glassware. And I think this will take time, and accept that it will take us time to go back to it, and that it takes time to reuse these things. So in science, it just feels like everything needs to be fast, and needs to be just now, you know. Whilst if we want to go back to be sustainable with this, we need to, you know, hold on and say like, okay, I need to spend a certain amount of time in being sustainable. You know, it takes time, and it has its cost. So, but that's the way to go. You know, I think that's where we have to go back to. But yeah, it's difficult. It's definitely difficult. You know, with everything in life, every job uses a lot of plastic. But yeah, science is very plastic based. So. It makes you feel bad, really, when you end the.
I don't think the average person knows the scope of it as well. Like, you know, unfortunately,
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, especially in our fields where we're working with a lot of microorganisms, that we need to have sterile tubes for them and sterile environments for them.
Yeah.
So just washing might not be enough. And so I've seen businesses start to go into this field where they're developing a machine that can help clean plasticware. So it's available and reusable for things like PCRs, which do require really sterile tubes. So you don't degrade your RNA, for instance. So we're moving there. Slowly and surely. It's definitely something that needs to continue to happen.
I think with that, the microbiome could also be sort of looked at as a potential source of materials and molecules which could combat plastic challenge and, you know, waste reduction.
Yeah.
I mean, to generate, for example, new biodegradable substances, you know, environmentally say biodegradable substances. I mean, the microbiome could be used for certain things. You know, you can harvest the microbiome to generate biopolymers, for example. That could be the source for next generation of biodegradable materials. You know, so that ways I think we could also use the microbiome to address this challenge.
Yeah, we've seen companies start to use to culture funguses to produce what's pretty much a styrofoam, a very light sort of material that's able to help transport things. And styrofoam itself is really damaging for the environment. It's very challenging to recycle because it's not very cost effective and it takes up a lot of space. So having these sorts of things, which can also be broken down a lot easier, these are all coming from microorganisms, and it's definitely the way of the future.
Absolutely. And I think we need to pour a little bit more funding in trying to find bugs, you know, can do a lot better all the recycling that we are actually not able to manage. So hoping for that day to come soon. I think it will be an interesting time.
Yeah. Sorry, Jatin.
No. With the funding, I remember my mentor John. So he has used this quote from Mary Lasker very often, and I really like this one. So the quote is, "If you think research is expensive, try disease." You know, so it's
Completely agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
Impactful, you know. So there is obviously in the current scenario, it's even more evident than ever that we need to invest heavily in research, and especially research which is microbiome based, because it is linked to all these sustainability issues. And I think that's the way to look at it. Yeah.
That's a fantastic point, Jen. I think we don't pour enough money in investigating and trying to find new ways. And then when it comes the day when nothing can be solved, then we will have to pay a lot more money, you know. So that's again like the concept of bioeconomy, you know. It's better to prevent than having to cure afterwards. So
except antibiotics. Except antibiotics. Yeah, just said that really quickly, like, you know.
True.
Yeah. Katie, were you going to say something there?
Nope.
Nope. Okay, perfect. So I think we'll wrap it up there, guys. Unless you have any other burning issues you'd like to get off your chest beforehand. No? Comfortable with it? Cool, perfect. So I'd like to thank Jatin, Miguel, and Katie for being some expertise-driven discussion here. I think we all learned a bit more about sustainability and the microbiome. I think even we can acknowledge that it's something that even researchers, experts in the field, we think about sometimes. Like, you know, we have to actively, constantly work on being more sustainable in various aspects of our life. So after thanking the researchers here, I'd also like to thank the APC Microbiome Ireland for funding this, and International World Microbiome Day for getting on board with this. And if you have any other questions, please feel free to reach out to any of the experts here, and they'll sure to get back to you. So thank you again, guys, and have a nice evening.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Lovely chat.
Bye, guys.
Bye, everyone.